We're going to dive straight into Newcastle United.
Topic. Newcastle
United, your favourite topic, yeah, which leads us off perfectly. 15 games unbeaten, fantastic in defence, pretty clutch down the other end, an XG of 31.6 with 33 goals, and down the other end, their XG against is 17.4, but they've actually only conceded 11 goals so far this season. Why are they so good, David? What is the number one thing that you've been impressed with this year?
I think the number one thing is how they have recruited, how they've organised their team. I think they've been, when we saw the money coming in Newcastle, the first thing that everybody did was think, which world star they're going to go for, which silly deal they're going to go for. They went for none of them. And when something has come up and they've been asked, there's been a bit of a Newcastle tax, I think, is starting to exist as well. They've walked away from deals. They've been very smart. They've got a really nice spine in that team right now, and I think we're going to see them over the next 2 or 3 years. Just add around it really smart signings, continue to do.
Yeah. Babe, do you agree with that? I guess the one thing you can say is it's when you're careful, I think it's admirable, but you almost then look at Chelsea, who are kind of, the opposite in terms of their form, but have sort of made a bit of a march in terms of these sort of young players and putting them on long-term deals. Do you think there's any element of luck in terms of the recruitment and getting that spine right?
I actually think on the pitch they've been a little bit lucky. I mean, you just spoke about their XG numbers and their XG against. I think they're slightly below on their XG in terms of goals they're scoring, but I don't think they create many opportunities. And I keep watching them playing. When you watch a team and you go, Joe Linton's popped up with a goal this week, Almiron this week. At some point, the goals are going to stop popping up, and that's where I kind of go, then what are they going to do? Because at the moment they're compact, they're difficult to beat. The recruitment's been nice, and I think they've done well. They haven't over-recruited. The only player that they've spent a lot of money for is Alexander Isak, and we haven't really seen him yet, but the bits we have seen, he looks great. Yeah. So you kind of go in, if that deal works, then they're in business. My thing, as I say, though, is there's a long way to go. I think we're at that point in the season where normally, at this point, we're going business end of the season. Actually, we're just in the middle of the season at the moment, and if you lose 3 or 4 games, this talk of wherever they're going to finish can slowly stumble down.
It's injuries that might hit them, I think. If you look, Bruno Guimaraes went off, and you do think, what happens if Trippier got injured? What happens if Botman, who's been one of the best signings of the season, got injured? It'll be interesting to see how they react to that.
It's funny because I think the phrase I keep hearing is sort of players have stepped up, and that in itself suggests that they are running that little bit hot. Or if we kind of put those comparisons that a lot of people have spoken about in terms of Eddie Howe and going to Atletico Madrid and kind of utilising that idea and installing it here, it's one of those where with Atletico Madrid over the years with Diego Simeone, you're often going like, how are they still in the running for these things? But they often went right to the wire and got themselves there. So in terms of those players, just to dive a little deeper on them, who's impressed you the most in terms of those players that you could say have stepped up this year or surprised us a little bit?
I think it has to be Almiron. He was a bit of a joke figure before when you look at it.
There's a few of them, isn't there, in terms of those joke figures?
He was viewed as a bit of a headless chicken, really. A guy who comes from MLS. He's come over. He's not really produced consistently. Some would say not even at all. I think there's been times you've watched him, you just think, does he really know what he's doing? But this season, he's been incredible. Everything seems to have come together. I think the main thing with Almiron was everything was rushed, everything was so quick, everything was 100 mile an hour. He just seems to have found a little bit of composure, especially around the final third, and I think it's improved his whole game.
I think when you're winning football matches and you have these players that are sort of like what I call flair players, they're just relying on like one thing happening, and it's fortunate for him his first goal this season was a worldie, and then after that you just start trying things. And I think he's just gone. The Fulham goal like probably sticks in my head because the ball's come over the defender's head, and I'm thinking, don't hit that. Like in my head I'm going, you're Almiron, don't hit that, and he's gone for it and it's gone in, and I'm sure like he's also thinking, yeah, here we go, like I've got a bit of this, I've got a bit of that. I think he would have been the most gutted player in the world when the World Cup came around, because he was in such good form, momentum was rolling through, and then the World Cup came, and then it's sort of like it slowed down a little bit. I think we've seen like Eddie Howe and Newcastle kind of go, they're giving him the ball, and even he's a bit like, mate, I've done it for like 12 games, I can't keep doing it.
Yeah. There's a sort of you just think of the words surely not with Newcastle a lot of the time, and you think that's what I've said. I've got a bit of heat online because I've said that I think from what I've seen over the years, teams like Newcastle United, and when we talk about them, it's like Kieran Trippier, in terms of key passes per 90, he is such a cornerstone of possession for them. In terms of key passes per 90, it's only Kevin De Bruyne who's got more than him. He's a joy on FPL. An absolute joy for everyone. And if you haven't got him, then shame on you. But he's been crucial in terms of another player stepping up. Sven Botman in the defence. Nick Pope, who doesn't have to do what he's bad at, in my opinion, which is that distribution, because they play simple and then they get the ball to Kieran Trippier. And then the likes of Joe Linton, you talk about players who've been a bit of a joke in the past. He's another one where... This is the thing, though, with all of them, it has to stop.
Yeah, it has to
Does
stop
it
at
have
some
to
point,
stop?
right? Yeah,
Does it have to stop? Or do you think they can get themselves to the Champions League? Because, your team are... Where are you guys at the moment? 8th or 9th? Chelsea
I don't look at the table anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Brentford, it's a very interesting, odd table that we've got this year. So, this surely not ideal. Will we be wrong, basically?
I think I'm always inclined to lean towards the sides that have been there and done that. I know that's a really cheap phrase to use, but I do feel like there will come a point where they'll draw a couple of games. It felt that way actually when they beat Leeds last minute, that they weren't going to get past Leeds, and that would have been Leeds and Fulham back to back where they failed to score. And I think it takes for them to keep opening that gap over Spurs at the moment. We've got 33 points. I don't think it'll be Spurs who get top 4 either. So I'm kind of going, it's going to be someone, but I just don't think Newcastle. I think it could be a Brighton. I don't think it'll be Brentford. I think Chelsea could sneak in. It's just a case of who can get a bit of form going. But in terms of Newcastle, I just think 11 clean sheets. At some point, teams are going to go, especially in the second part of the season, looking at their fixtures. You've got Palace, West Ham, Bournemouth, Liverpool, then Brighton, City, Wolves, and then you're into game week 28, and every team after that needs points. People now know how Newcastle play. When Leeds rolled up to Newcastle, they sort of went, come and attack us. And Newcastle were like, well, we don't do that because our keeper kicks it 5 yards instead of chipping it out to the fullback. And I think at some point teams are going to go try and break us down, and I think that's when they'll start to struggle.
In terms of Isak, do you think him coming back and staying fit, that's a huge amount of money spent on a player that hasn't played and they're still this good? We're being a little bit harsh in the fact that they've got another gear quite possibly if him and Callum Wilson can put up a bit of a partnership. And in the game last week, they look pretty nice.
Yeah, he's the sort of player who could come back and lift them. They've still got Alan St. Maximin as well to come back, and probably get in the team. You've got to remember, he was doing it all at one point. Other players have kind of stepped up.
On his own, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Isak's just one of those players I think that they'll probably look to buy more of in the next few years. Kind of players, young players who have been performing at a really, really good level at maybe smaller clubs in other leagues, and then bringing them in and hoping that they step up. So he's somebody who has to deliver towards the end of the season.
I think stick Callum Wilson in an ice chamber. You need him for 10 games. He's played 969 minutes, got 6 goals and 4 assists. Like, he's a machine.
Yeah.
But he just can't stay fit. Just get him fit for 10 games, and then you could dream of top 4.
I guess the other thing, we're in January and the transfer window is obviously open. They have been very conservative, as a team that's good to go when it comes to the money side of it. Do you expect them to sort of go big with one last transfer, and if so, where would you like to see them strengthen?
Probably a midfielder. I think with Bruno Guimaraes' injury, then they've obviously played Joe Linton as part of a front 3, then in a midfield 3. Sean Longstaff, who's getting asked to do all the legwork in there. I'd imagine they're looking at a midfielder in a window. The problem is, it's January, people know you've got money, people know you're Newcastle. You're not going to get someone for like 26 million or 30. You're going to have to pay like 40 plus million. Yeah. And I think Eddie Howe's probably going, do I want to upset the balance? At the moment, we've got a humble bunch. Everyone's pulling in the right direction. They're tweeting every other day about someone's partner inviting them over for a birthday. That could change when you bring in someone for like 40, 50 million.
There's only so many birthdays, isn't there? That's a big thing. If it was me, I do like the way that they're doing it. And it is sort of, it does endear everyone else, I think, because when they then succeed, it feels a bit more earned and structured instead of just blowing away the competition by buying too many players. I wonder if they'll be careful. I wonder if they'll just go, look, we would have been happy with 8th. If we can get Europa League, in terms of, because they don't need to be in any rush.
No,
it's not like, if we don't get Champions League football, we are in trouble here. We need to help ourselves when it comes to FFP and all those different things. They're not there yet because they've been careful. So should they continue down that road?
Yeah, there's no rush. I mean, why? Europa League in year 1 is pretty much good. Like in terms of a rebuild, that's fine, and you can take everything. Wait for the summer market to open up. They've probably got transfer targets identified. They've placed Ashworth in behind the scenes, whose reputation is really, really big. He already know. Look, if we qualify for Europa, these are the players I want. If we get in the Champions League, these are the players. Look, so I'm assuming they'll have different lists of players. So I think they're going to wait. I think they're going to be content with the squad they've got.
Give me the eyes.
Would you look at this table though and go, no one's doing that well. We can sneak in this year.
Yes, that is that is the counter for it.
Absolutely.
Do you kind of have a little go for it? And again, you could spin it again and go, we've been conservative, guys. Now look, it's all there in a big pile digitally. Let's spend that money and get that player in. And you're right, with Bruno Gomes and that ankle injury, if he's fine, then fine. But as soon as he does get injured, everyone goes, oh, there's a problem here. Yeah. And so it's then bringing in that player. And do you think there might be? Do you think the James Maddison one's been spoken about a lot? Do you think that's one that they might just go and get done, the little cheeky one with James Maddison for a Leicester squad that seems happy to just float or just about survive?
Leicester would be bonkers to sell him.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot sell James Maddison. James Maddison on one leg is better than most of the attackers they've got.
Yeah,
and they're going to want like 70, 80 million. Is he going to fit in with Newcastle straight away? They don't play with number 10, although he plays as like a wide right-sided forward. I don't know, man. Leicester, if you're watching, don't sell Maddison.
Okay.
You're going down if you do.
Final question. Always like to do this. Where will they finish, Newcastle? In a sentence.
I think they're going to get 6th quite comfortably.
I'll go 5th.
Yeah, I'll go 5th as well. Let us know in the comments down below, where are Newcastle going to end up? Go on, Newcastle fans. Say first. I dare you.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.